works. All right. So I'm Stacey Briscoe, wine journalist and editor, and I'm here with Laura Diaz, who is the winemaker for Ehlers Estate. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
So I thought maybe we could just start with a little bit about your background. I know you're fairly new to Ehlers Estate in that you took your current position just in 2018, but you've been in the business for many years and started, if I understand correctly, in your home country back in Madrid in Spain. Is that right?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Spain, and I'm from Madrid. Not a big wine region per se in Spain, but there's in the south there's a few wines, amazing wines coming from that area. But I mean, I didn't grow up in a family with connections to the wine business at all, or a winery, but always love wine and food, and love science. And I think that's what brought me to winemaking in some point in an early age. And then, you know, I like to travel, so I travel around the world before coming to Napa. But I came to Napa in 2007. And I mean, I didn't just want to move away from here once I started working here. And I had really nice opportunities. I've been working for almost 13, 14 years now. Before Ehlers Estate, I started a brand with Jackson Family Wines, Gallery Wines. And then I work also for Cardinal, Locoya, La Haute, and Montbrave.
Okay, perfect. And so what was it about Ehlers Estate that made you want to come and work for them specifically?
Well, I met the owners, the current owners, and they're great people. I really like the feeling of a family, even if it's not a family right now. We are owned by the Leduc Foundation, which I can explain a little bit about it, but it's just the feeling of a small winery, family owned, the history behind it, having the estate and the vineyards, most of them surrounding the estate, the property. I just really like the feeling. I always like the wines coming from here. So, and I have the opportunity to basically run the business, and they offer me to be just the winemaker and also run sales and be the general manager on the vineyard. So I was very, very attracted by it.
Yeah, so you kind of have your fingers in everything. And if I understand correctly, so all the wines are made from estate fruit. And it's a pretty small property, right? Just 42 acres or so?
Yeah, so it's 42 acres. I started actually making a wine that is non-estate. That's our Cabernet Sauvignon, which is the one that we produce the most. And mostly just because we needed to make more wine. That was a big problem that we had. So from my previous years working in the Valley, I know some growers. I know some sites that are really good. So I thought, why not to bring that variety also to the wines? So we started making that wine in 2018. But yeah, I mean, we are 42 acres. We have planted 42 acres, mostly Cabernet Sauvignon, but we have Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Petit Verdot, and a little bit of Sauvignon Blanc.
And the vineyards are all organic certified, and all of
Yes, so we they started working organically in 2005, and we got certified in 2008. So it's been a while working with organic practices. And I mean, you can see it, I can see it, and I can experience once I joined here, I realized these soils are very healthy. So this estate, the vineyards are soils that are actually not very deep. They're very close to the Napa River. They have a lot of rocks, very gravelly, long with some content of clay, but they're very rich in nutrients. Like we barely have to use any fertilizer when we have to, and we add compost every other year because we don't even need to do it on a regular basis. They are very healthy soils, so very lucky for that.
Yeah, that is really lucky. I imagine that helps with kind of the concentration of the fruit too, right? The nutrients in the soil, the fact that you don't have to maybe irrigate as much.
Yeah, well, they're very well drained, the soils. We irrigate, but actually since I joined, I'm doing a little bit of um, I would say micromanagement of the irrigation. There are certain areas that are actually struggling just because we have a lot of rocks. It's very rocky, our soil. So, and I think that has an impact on the structure of the wines, the aromatics of the wine. So we have very low yields for being located in the valley floor, very low yields, so which is good for the concentration of the aromas, but is very tricky to manage. So I install double poly, which is a double line of irrigation. So I only irrigate the areas that really need it. Um, but yeah, it's actually good that for quality.
Yeah. Something else that was interesting, and I'm gonna see if I can share my screen. Let's see. I had a map pulled up here, and if I can share it. All right, it's not letting me share it, but there was a really cool description in your in some of the materials from the press packet, and it was talking about how where you're located. So I always think of St. Helena and kind of that area as really, really warm. Like I just feel like it gets warmer the further north I get. But you're talking about how you're in between the two main mountains, right? And so the cold air actually kind of funnels through, and so you're actually in a bit of a unique, cool microclimate in the area.
Yeah, I think the proximity also to the river, it helps between the mountains. We have certain spots that are very cold, but the certain spots for such a small acreage, we have some areas that are actually very warm. It's very interesting how for a state, the spread of the ripeness, it's very wide. I actually normally start picking in early September, but I don't finish until late October.
Oh, wow.
So, and it's because of also we have different clones. We have, for example, for Cabernet Sauvignon, 7 different clones. So they also ripe at a different time. They need to be managed differently because some clones are more vigorous than others. So it's very diverse what we have, but I mean, I wouldn't say that it's a really cold area. I mean, it's warm.
Yeah, but the fact that you have the cooling influence, I imagine that helps. And actually that kind of goes into the first wine that I wanted to taste, which is the Ehlers Estate Sauvignon Blanc, which I found had a really good acidity to it, but still not overripe in any way. So do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so one of the things talking about that influence of the temperatures, the nights are really cold here. So there's a big difference between night and day, which is very similar to what can happen in the mountains, but I mean not exactly the same. But they fluctuate. They can get very warm during the day, but very cold during the night. So I think that balance out the acidity. I don't have really low acids in the wines, and also in the reds. You can feel that with the Cabernet Franc, for example, or the Merlot. They're very fresh, which is very surprising for me because I normally wait for the ripeness. For the Sauvignon Blanc, I think, and this 2019. Is my making from grape to bottle. I try to pay a lot of attention to manage the canopy. So I don't remove any leaves at all, very, very little, just very closer to the cluster area. So I try to protect the skins from the sun, but there's still some light going through those leaves that helps those thiols, the precursors of the thiols, to evolve. So it's a wine that when you smell it, it feels ripe. It has more not tropical. I wouldn't say that tropical because there's some green notes on it, but it's very well ripe. But then you put it in the mouth and you have that freshness and that acidity, which is so nice in Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah. Yeah, that was again surprising for me just because I tend to have this warm climate kind of mentality about that area, and just the fact that the acidity is so high, and like you said, it's more in the kind of citrus and maybe some stone fruits, but it doesn't hit the like tropical warm climate side of the spectrum, and you don't get the kind of overly grassy or overly herbaceous. It's kind of that happy medium.
I always describe it like white peach,
Yes.
but not like super ripe. No, it's not super juicy. It's like melon. But that green melon, you know, so is that kind of in between too ripe and actually green, which is I like those aromatics. I also don't pick the fruit very late. I don't go very high on bricks. I pay attention to the acidity during the ripeness, so I try not to go too high.
And in terms of the winemaking, I noticed that there was a note here about you got a new concrete egg. Do you want to talk a little bit about the actual winemaking process, and how the egg maybe kind of helps? There's a little bit of like minerality that I find to this as well.
Yeah, so this wine, what I normally do, we don't have much. We planted only 2 acres. We don't produce much of this wine. What I do with the juice, and I normally pick it at different days, I put some part of the juice in a concrete egg, some part of the juice in a stainless steel, another part of that same juice into new oak. I use the pensions, the 135-gallon barrels, and it's new oak. It might be just a 7%, 6% of the total blend, but that I think the new oak, even if light toast, can give a little bit of that minerality and contribute to it. What to me, the concrete egg, what it does to the wine is enhance the volume, like the mouthfeel. I work a lot with Sauvignon Blanc with the leaves. I do a lot of stirring, batonnage. And it helped me with the egg because I don't have to do a lot of stirring with the egg. The leaves stay in suspension for a longer period of time without having to mix it. So I think it helps a lot with the mouthfeel. I really like that. And the aromatics, I don't know why the egg give to me kind of like enhance the floral notes, especially in white wine. So I get a little bit of those. I said it's kind of like yellow flowers, wild yellow flowers.
I can see that, yeah. Sometimes I say like chamomile or
yes, exactly. But the oak is there. It's very subtle.
So subtle. I was surprised when I read it on the notes that you used French oak, because usually I'm very sensitive to it, and I was like, wow, this must be very, very minuscule in the blend.
And also I choose toastiness in the end that is really, really light. So it enhances more the fruit character than actually giving notes of vanilla or those other kind of more oak related aromas. And also it doesn't age for a long period of time, only between 6 and 7 months. So if I would leave it probably for longer time, they will be more impactful.
Sure. I like it the way it is. I mean, you can drink it now. It's fresh. It's beautiful. So the next wine that I wanted to talk about actually was the Cabernet Franc. And the reason that I wanted to talk about that, so I'll just show it here. It's the Cabernet Franc. I have the 2018 vintage here. And the reason that I wanted to talk about it, and actually I just found out that December 4th is Cab Franc Day. So if anybody wants to go out and get some Cab Franc, we can get some from Ehlers Estate. But even though it's coming more into the mainstream, but you still don't see a lot of single varietal bottles of Cab Franc yet. I feel like it's kind of coming to fashion, but not yet.
It's very trendy lately.
Yeah.
There's more interest from winemakers to showcase it
Hmm.
as a monovarietal. Ehlers was doing it from, I think, in the past 10, 15 years. They always had a Cabernet Franc. I just love this Cabernet Franc. It's very, I always say that it has like a signature coming from Ehlers, from this state. So we have different blocks of Cabernet Franc, different orientations, different clones, and even different rootstocks. So they are very different, but it has a really nice color. I
Yeah.
think it rides properly. And one of the trickiest things with Cabernet Franc is normally it gives you a lot of herbal notes.
Yes.
It takes longer for it to ripe. It's very vigorous. Cabernet Franc is a very vigorous varietal. Controlling or managing the yields and the amount of fruit. We actually have to do like 2 or 3 different passes when we do suckering because it just keeps growing. Really. So it also that doesn't help when it has big canopies. Normally, the fruit area is more shaded. So we need to expose it. And just because I think the day temperatures in this area are very warm, I try not to remove leaves either during in the red with our red varietal. So it's very tricky. It requires a lot of attention, but I think it pays off. It has really nice color. It ripes very well. It's normally one of the varietals, at least for the past 2 years that I've been here. Obviously, I harvested the latest, even later than Cabernet Sauvignon, because I want to be sure that has that ripeness.
Yeah.
But it's very fruity. It's very floral.
Yes.
That's that violet, lavender flower, kind of. It has still that signature of herbal notes, but they are very like dry herbs. And I always describe it as herbs de Provence herbs, that kind of aromatics, that spice rack that you have in your kitchen to cook, but it's more like the herbal, like rosemary.
Yeah. And just for the record, I mean, you're pretty much repeating exactly what I wrote in my tasting notes. I mean, to your point, I mean, you know, Cabernet Franc is known to have that kind of over herbaceousness, especially. I mean, I find it more in cooler climates than probably Napa Valley has, but it's just, it just add, like, there's enough of it that you can sort of taste it, but it does something to the back of the palate to almost lift it a little bit instead of being the first thing that you taste. But it's, yeah, for me on the aromatics, I mean, it's all about the violets and those kind of dry floral notes. And then on the palate, it's very, I find it's very fruit forward compared to other expressions that I've had. So
it has kind of like a little bit of kind of like the blueberry, raspberry, but ripe. The 2018 is my first vintage. It was bottled in August, and I use a tiny bit more new oak than we use in the past. So you can feel it right now, like you can taste that coffee notes.
Yeah, it is very young, and you can tell that it has a lot of potential for aging. But I mean, I would still say if someone was very excited about this wine, they could totally enjoy it right now out of the bottle.
So I wanted to ask you, because I think you are the first person
Okay.
that you are seeing our new labels. What do you think of them?
So I didn't know that this was a new label, because I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
This is the first time that I'm tasting from Ehlers Estate. So do you want to talk about the label design? Was that another side project of yours?
I'm very excited about the labels. So this is the old label. All our wines have this silver label, which is I like it. It's very Ehlers, like you knew it right away. But one of the things that when I joined, I noticed how the personality of the wines were very different. I just wanted kind of like to showcase the wine and the place. This tasting room is very historical. You can see the stone walls behind me. It was built in 1886. So one of the first wineries were in the valley. We have a really cool, very artsy tank room. And also, I just wanted to highlight the valley, and we are surrounded by 2 mountain ranges and different areas. So that's why each of our wines kind of like showcase the views. It's like kind of like a 360 degree angle of the property. So if each of the wine has kind of like one of the pictures or views that you can see from here. The Jean Leduc that we'll taste soon has the stone building. So I work with an artist from Spain. Her name is Marta Botas, and she's very talented. So I just love them.
That's great. That's great. And Leo, let's go ahead. We can move on to the Cabernet Sauvignon here. And you mentioned a little bit about Jean Leduc. Is that how you say the name there? Did you want to talk a little bit about his legacy and the importance of him to the winery? Because I know that's really important to the story, the brand, and
it
the
is.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have the pleasure of meeting them because they are not with us anymore. But Jean Leduc and Sylvain Leduc, they of this property. They bought the property. Well, they bought the vineyards before even buying the winery. I think in the late 1990s, in the late 90s. They replanted the estate and they bought this property in 2001, the winery. They were a French couple, business-oriented people. They have businesses all over the world, especially US and France. They love wine, they love food, French couple, they enjoy life, but they didn't have any children. So when they retired, they created a foundation, which is the Leduc Foundation. And it's amazing the work that they do. Right now, they are managed by the directors of this foundation, which are the people I work with. But what they do is they grant projects they provide grants to projects that focus on cardiovascular and neurovascular research in the development of technologies and treatments for this area. They are huge. They are internationally renowned. Obviously not very well known in this industry, but what they are doing is amazing, and it's just, it's great what they're doing. Jean Leduc didn't die because he had a heart issue. He had a heart issue actually, but he didn't die because of that. But it's a really great cause, and being part of it, I don't know, it makes sense that I'm making wine, and I help a little bit with heart disease as well, a little bit of wine every day can help.
That's wonderful. It's always nice to know, like the story behind some of the wineries that do work for the community outside of just making wine, and I think that's it adds something not just to the brand story, but it adds something to the sense of community, so when people visit, when people maybe get your wines, they know that it's not just another something you can help. There's something behind the story.
The philosophy of Ehlers matches and is led by them. They just want to create a good experience, so that's why we put a lot of attention to the guests in the property. They want to make wines that are not that don't damage the environment. That's why it's so important for us to stay organic. They take very good care of the people that work for them. It's all about the community and being less impactful and damage the environment. So it has to do a little bit with those values, and it helps obviously. So this wine, the Jean Leduc, is a homage to Jean Leduc, and I heard that he was a strong character, like a French big personality. So this wine, we don't produce a lot. We actually produce between 200 and 300 cases only. But I made it's 100% Cabernet Sauvignon. It every year will come from a single vineyard or a single block.
Yeah.
This year, for the 2018 vintage, I chose a block that is in front of our winery, in front of the tasting room. It's Clone 15, 100% coming from that side.
And is there a
And
reason you chose that block specifically? Was there anything special about the way the fruit was growing, or?
I just really liked the wine. I thought it was bold. I thought it was big, very fruity, really good structure and tannins. So when I make this wine or put together this wine, I always think on those characteristics. And it was showing from finish of alcoholic fermentation, malolactic, the whole aging process. It was a wine that I knew that it was going to be really good.
Yeah, I really like appreciated this wine, and it's actually I like the point of difference of having this back to back with the Cabernet Franc, and I mean, one, tasting the varietal difference obviously is always interesting, but just kind of the way that you're able to integrate those tannins, like they're very present, but they're very plush and integrated into the wine. So even though it's still very young, you don't feel overpowered by the tannins. They actually add a nice structure, a nice backbone to them. And same thing with the alcohol. You know, so I know some people will see like anything above a 14 and kind of shy away. And I have to say, this is one of those cases where it's like, don't look at what the ABV is, because it adds, there's like a lift to it. And I think if it had been any less, then I think this one says 15%. If it had been any less, it would have been a little.
No. I don't think that it's, it says 15. That's what
yeah, so I mean, that's what it says on the bottle. But
no. It's 14.7, 14.6.
Yeah, but I mean, still, it's just enough to add that little bit of lift and softness. So
you don't feel at all that heat from the alcohol. It's very fruity. It has really nice acidity. So it is that balance that you said. But the tannins, I think, in general, in the previous wines that I taste from the property and what I'm seeing and I'm experiencing the first 2 years, those tannins are very soft. Like they are not the big typical tannins that you can expect, but they are there and they stay there. So it's a really well balanced wine, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And I kind of wanted to ask, you know, is there, knowing that you're working with bigger Bordeaux varieties on the property, do you have any specific like red winemaking protocols that you follow, like typical recipes?
Not really. No, I mean, I take it as I took in the past. For me, is the place and the vineyard. I think every single vineyard has to be managed differently. And for example, we were talking about the tannins. Tannins need to be managed differently coming from different areas. And that's the beauty of Napa, the diversity of the microclimates create different expression of those tannins. So I just look at what each varietal gives me depending on the place. I here in Ehlers, I try to think on each varietal differently. I don't make the Merlot as the Cabernet Sauvignon and use the same protocol, same with Cabernet Franc. So I don't have a recipe, honestly. I never even thought about creating a standard protocol of making wine. In my variety, and the proof has been the past years, every year is completely different here. We had like cooler years with 2018. This year has been very warm, extremely warm. So having a protocol, I don't think that it will work, to be honest, especially to be consistent year after year.
I feel like that's the right answer. So,
okay.
I mean, like to your point, I mean, it's going to depend block to block. It's going to depend vintage to vintage. So that's good, and it's good for your consumers to know too that you know you're making something that's authentic in every bottle with every wine. That it's not just a standard recipe or protocol year to year. It adds value.
And working in a small property, like I have fully control over the whole process. I can see everything.
Mhm.
So it's not, you know, when you manage maybe, or a winemaker manage bigger volumes is way different. So I think I feel privileged in the way that I can have full control
Yeah.
in every aspect. Yeah.
So the last thing I wanted to ask you, and that you brought this up a little bit, but I know that you also have your own brand that you work with or that you created when you were with.
Yeah, but I'm not working with them anymore.
Oh, okay.
For gallery, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no.
Okay.
I love that brand. It was very fun to study it. And I love especially the Sauvignon Blancs and the Riesling that I was making with gallery.
Yeah.
They were beautiful wines and beautiful sites to work with. Very different than Ehlers. Mhm.
So do you have any other side projects that you're working on that people should know about?
Well, I'm considering to probably starting, yeah, my own brand. Still in the process of it,
Okay.
and different varietals, completely different. So, but it's in the making. So
Okay. We'll
it
stay
might
tuned
happen
for
soon.
that one. Um,
Exactly.
and in terms of Ehlers Estate, I know with the pandemic and everything that's going on right now, things are kind of going up and down. Is your tasting room open? Are you taking appointments? Like how is the guest experience for you guys over there?
So I think one of the big advantages that we had, so this property and Bernard Ehlers, the founder, created a olive grove in the property, besides planting the vineyards, and we have a big garden, which I replanted to California native plants, and a lot of flowers, a lot of butterfly and bee friendly flowers. So we have an amazing outdoor space. We've been able to use it as soon as we were able to open to the public. We're using it as much as possible, and the weather has been good. We've been open. We receive visitors. We are very lucky that we have a lot of wine club members checking on us and wanting to come. And during COVID, even during the times that we've been closed, we've been trying to be in contact with our guests, and we've been doing okay considering the circumstances. Mm-hmm.
And are you guys
And
also doing the virtual tastings too for guests? Is that another option for people?
yes, we did. We do virtual tastings anytime everybody requested, even with myself. If someone wants to talk to a winemaker, we schedule them here and there. We were more active before during harvest. I kind of like slow down because I didn't have much time. But yes, we are available for virtual tastings. We actually very small groups, and just one household we were doing winemaker dinners as well in the property, outdoors and outside. So yeah, doing what we can, you know.
Okay, cool. Very cool. Well, is there anything else that you want to add about maybe yourself or any of the wines that you're working on?
No, well, thank you. No, I don't think. I think we talk about everything. But no, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for this conversation. It's very nice to meet you, and
Yeah, thank you.
I
Thank
hope
you.
that you enjoy the wines.
Yes, 100%. I was going to tell you the reason that this bottle is so low is because I opened it to taste before the interview. And then I told my husband last night for dinner, I was like, I can't help it. We're having a glass with this for dinner because this is absolutely
Oh, I love it.
one of my favorite Sauvignon Blancs right now. Just
Oh,
because
thank you,
there's
thank
such
you.
a good balance of the earth and the fruit and the florals. So yeah, so that one was very beautiful, and I've got my red wines here for later. So yes.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for joining me. And I'm going to post links to all of the wines that we tasted as well as a few others so people can, if they're interested, I know you can purchase wines online. And like Laura said, if anybody wants to taste at the vineyard, they're doing COVID safe tasting. So you can probably sign up for that online as well or call. And yeah, thank you.
Have a good Thanksgiving. The Cabernet Franc actually could do very well with that turkey, right? Thank you very much,
Thank
Stacey. Very nice to
you.
meet you.